Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Melanie Whitaker, and I am an executive trainer with Forbes Travel Guide. Today, I'd like to talk to you about events sales. But first, please allow me to share some information about Forbes Travel Guide. Forbes Travel Guide is the official star ratings company. We have been evaluating hotels, restaurants, and spas since 1958, and currently we evaluate in over 70 countries around the globe. Right now, these are the total numbers of hotels, restaurants, and spas that have earned ratings from Forbes Travel Guide. 5 stars is the highest rating that you can receive from Forbes Travel Guide. And there are only 268 5-star hotels, 592 4-star hotels, and 439 recommended hotels. Does this sound like a lot of hotels? If you think about the total number of hotels in more than 70 countries around the world, you'll realize that the hotels that have earned these ratings are actually very few. So what does it say about them? Well, they are world class. They are the best of the best, and they consistently provide exceptional experiences to their luxury guests. Our evaluators think just like a luxury guest, and so should you. When our evaluators look at each standard, the standard must be met completely, 100% of the way, in order to earn a yes. There is no partial credit, so if standards are not met completely, they receive a no. And that's how most luxury guests think as well. You either meet their expectations or you don't. It is not about what you could have done during the interaction. It is about what you actually did. Each standard is evaluated separately from one another. That means if one standard is missed and receives a no, it will not negatively impact any of the other standards that will be evaluated. Our evaluators and your guests will experience both the service and the facility at your property. Which of those do you think has the biggest impact on the guest? Yes, it is the service. The service has a bigger impact than the facility. Does that mean the facility is not important? Of course not. Physical items are still important, and they must be pristine, completely clean, well maintained, in excellent condition. But when your guest leaves your property, what is it that they take with them? They take the memories of their experience. Who creates those memories? You do. You and your team create the memories. And the way that you make your guest feel during the service is going to last a lot longer than the guest's memories of the teacup or the teapot or teaspoon or napkin. Those things the guest will forget about fairly quickly. But the way you made them feel during the service, those memories will last. Let's talk about today's session. In today's session, we are going to cover your preparation for event sales. Preparation is so important, and we'll talk about some of the things that you need to be prepared for. We're also going to talk about building relationships and developing trust and credibility with your clients. We'll talk about how to close the sale and what can you do to stay connected after the event, or even if the event doesn't end up taking place at your property. Towards the end of this session, we're also going to look at some different event sales scenarios. Let's start with preparation. Part of preparation is to know what you sell to your customers versus what you sell for your hotel. Are those two things the same? They aren't. What do you sell to your customer? You sell an experience. You sell memories to the customer. And what do you sell for your hotel? You sell room space, food, materials, such as notepads, pens, audiovisual equipment, tables, chairs, tablecloths. Those are the physical things that you actually sell for your hotel. But to your customer, you create an event with memories. You're creating an experience for them. So the first part of preparation is to know what you sell. Let's look at a quote from Benjamin Franklin. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. How does this relate to event sales? Well, if you don't prepare, you are not likely to make the sale. Part of preparation is knowing your customers. It's important to know if your customer is a prospective customer. Are they still shopping around? Are they a first-time customer? Or are they a long-time customer? Your approach and your strategy to selling for each of these different types of customers will be completely different. It's kind of like dating. When you go on your first date, you'll probably act and behave and say things differently than you do on the second date. And that's going to be a lot different from 3 months from now when you go on a date with that same person. And in 3 years' time, if you're still together, that's going to look differently as well. So let's talk about these 3 customers a little bit more. For a prospective customer, it's important to find out what other venues they are considering. Why do you want to find out this information? Well, when you know this information, it will give you an idea of their expectations and their price range, and whether they are looking at other properties within your competitive set or outside of your competitive set. You'll also want to know what drew them to your property specifically. This can help you to develop your strategy for selling. With first-time customers, you'll want to think about ways that you can turn them into a loyal customer. Even if they're planning an event that is a one-off, such as a wedding, how can you get them to come back for an anniversary or for a birthday party? Everything must go as planned in order to develop that trust and credibility that you need to turn them into a loyal customer. And what about your longtime customers? These are customers that have been coming back to your property again and again. So continue that relationship and think about ways that you can exceed their expectations this time. Next, you'll want to adapt to your customers. Everyone is different, and it's up to you to adapt to some of those differences. For example, is your client really talkative and excited and enthusiastic? If so, be the same way. Be excited for them. Or are they more quiet and reserved? If so, maybe you are a little bit more serious. What is the length of the meeting that they prefer? Would they like to have a 5-minute sales pitch Or do they want to have a 1 hour long conversation? Do they want to meet with you many, many times in order to decide and to plan? Or would they like everything to be taken care of in one meeting? What is the focus of that meeting? Are you going to talk for 55 minutes about relationship, family, their vacation, and just get to know them? And then the last 5 minutes get down to the business of the sale? It's important to really adapt to your customer. If your customer wants to talk about family and vacation, that's what you talk about to begin with. If they want to get right to the sale, then that is what you do. What is their price consciousness? Is it someone who would prefer to know exactly what the final price will be? Or is it a client who would prefer to haggle or negotiate over the prices? Now let's talk about being the expert. You must be the expert if you wish to make the sale. So know what the guest wants. And you can do this by finding out more about this guest or this client. Do your research. Remember the quote by Benjamin Franklin? So check their website. Check their competitors' websites to see what they're doing. Check their LinkedIn or social media if possible. Find out if you know anyone in common, or perhaps you know where they have worked before, or you have some similar experiences. When you do this research, put any of your personal feelings or differences aside, and set aside what anyone might have told you or any preconception. The next one is to believe in your product. In order to sell, you have to have a strong belief in what it is that you are selling. The service, the product, the facility, your operations team, your entire company, your brand, the culture of your brand. You need to believe in every one of these things and to show and demonstrate your expertise and your belief to your guest. Have energy and enthusiasm around your product and around the people that you work with. And know your competitors. You should also be an expert when it comes to your competition. What is your competitive advantage over the competition? And always act in the best interest of your client and your hotel, making your client feel that they are part of the experience. An important part of event sales are site inspections. Site inspections are so important because it allows your potential client to get a feel for your property and for the service that could be provided to them. An important part of a site inspection is the preparation that takes place before the client even arrives on site. You must inform your operations team, the valet team, the doorman, the front desk agent, your housekeeping team, the team in the restaurant, the hosts, the servers. Everyone in your hotel should be aware that a site inspection is scheduled. The first impressions for your client are crucial. So make sure that you are on time. You should never leave your client waiting for you to come and meet them. Be on the front drive waiting for them. Be the person that opens the car door for your client. Make sure that your mobile phones are switched off and that you will not be disturbed while you are conducting the site inspection. You can also enlist the help of all of your colleagues to sell your property. Get the whole team to be salespeople. When you take your guest to one of the rooms to show, Have a housekeeper meet you there in the corridor outside of the guest room and welcome your client by their name and say, Ms. Whitaker, we're so excited that you're considering our hotel for your property. My name is Melanie, and I'm a housekeeper on this floor. Please allow me to show you this beautiful guest room. Get their help. Have the server in the restaurant come over and introduce themselves and know the client's name and also convey excitement and enthusiasm for this client and their potential business. And it's important that you and every other member of staff that this client interacts with or sees on property is enthusiastic. Even if this is the 10th site inspection that you have done this day, you must be just as enthusiastic as you were at the start of the day. And even if this bride-to-be is the 1 millionth bride that you have given a site inspection to, you have to still bring your energy and your enthusiasm for her special event. Now let's talking about building relationships with these customers. People buy from people, and the greater the value of the business, the more important the relationship is going to be in order to close the sale. I know we talked about first impressions on a site inspection. Let's talk about first impressions a little bit more. When interacting with your potential client or first-time client, or even that client who has been coming back for years and years, it's important every time you interact that you still create a positive first impression. Make eye contact with your client. Show them that they are the most important person on property at that moment, and that you are completely engaged and they have your complete focus and attention. Don't be distracted by anything else that's going on around you. And certainly don't get distracted by your mobile phone. Smile and use an engaging expression when you interact with your client. Even if you have to wear a mask at the moment, you can still show a happy demeanor, even if they can't see your smile. And if it's a telephone conversation, they'll certainly be able to hear the smile in your tone of voice. Because when you smile on the phone, it changes your tone to sound more warm and welcoming and friendly. What should your body language look like? Your body language should be alert. You should be standing up straight, not leaning on anything, not crossing your arms or putting your hands in your pockets. You need to have professional, alert body language. And what about the way that you dress? How you dress is also important. It also sends a powerful message to your client. So dress for success. Ensure that what you wear is professional and that it's suitable for both your property and for the client that you are meeting with. If you are meeting with someone from a large corporation, you might wear a business suit. And if you're meeting with a bride, perhaps you're wearing a dress. Think about what you wear based on who you will be meeting with. The next point is to get to know your guest. And I have a quote that I'd like to share. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. From Epictetus. What does this quote have to do with getting to know your clients? Your clients should be doing most of the talking, and it's important that you are really listening and picking up all of the information that they are sharing. When getting to know your clients, be genuine. Engage in a genuine way. Perhaps you mention someone that you know in common, or where you've both worked, or a similar experience that you have. You can find that information when you do your research and preparation. And make sure that you remember small details that they shared. If they shared with you previously information about their partner or their children, perhaps where they live, or something funny that they shared or you shared with them, then you can be genuine by asking about these again. How are your children? Or how is your partner? So follow up. And we mentioned before to listen. Make sure that you're listening more than you're speaking when interacting with your clients. And when you listen, listen actively with no other distractions. Don't pay attention to other things going on around you. Give that client all of your attention. If it's a telephone call, make sure that you're not getting distracted by other emails that are coming in or other colleagues who are walking by or talking in the area. You want to be constant and consistent in the way that you communicate as well, whether that's face-to-face with your client or via email or on the telephone. And whenever you find out something about your client, no matter how small you might think that piece of information is, remember it. It's important to remember the details. So write it down if you need to. Keep notes that you can access later. If you met with a prospective client and that sale then goes to contract, your client should never have to repeat any information all over again. There's also a potential sale in everything. If someone is getting married, send a 1-year congratulations card. Or if someone has an allergy, on their second visit, make certain that the foods that are offered for them to try do not contain any of the allergens because you remembered those details. As a salesperson, you also have to be a storyteller. A story will really engage your client and captivate them. So it's important to know if your competition is selling the same thing. If they sell exactly the same thing, how is your story different? How does your story captivate your client into feeling what the differences will be? Why should they put their business with you and not the competition? And you must sell what you believe, and your belief in your product should come through in the stories that you tell, and you cannot waver in any way. Your story should build an emotional connection with your client. It should create a desire to work with you as a person and with your property, with your products and services. Your story should incorporate what differentiates your property from other hotels or resorts in the marketplace or in your competitive set. What is your hotel story? What is the history of your hotel? Or what is the story about the design of your hotel? Can you bring those in to really capture the attention and excitement of your potential client? An impassioned and empathetic communicator of the property's experience is really a key to luxury selling. And you'll want to consider the whole person when considering your client. Think not only about their mind, but what's going to capture their heart and their soul and get that intrinsic buzz or spark. Light that spark so that they want to book with you. The next part is to develop trust and credibility with your client. Now that you've prepared and you've gotten to know this client, it's time to really develop this trust, their trust in you, and show your credibility. Let's start with understanding what their needs are. You must understand your customer's need and also determine the need behind their need. So find out what is important to your client. Where do they place value? One product might be important to one customer, but to another customer, it's all about something else. So what is their value trigger? This can be difficult to figure out. You'll have to ask lots of questions and then listen to find out. And try to understand what makes your client tick. Most important is to understand who you're speaking to and know what they value. One customer might want outdoor space with a gorgeous view, and they don't care too much about the technology capabilities. You might have a different customer who wants high technology and doesn't necessarily care about having a view or any outdoor space. I'll give you an example. I had a past experience when a secretary had called me from a very prominent company and wanted to understand more about our meetings package. Because this company was so well known, I knew that they must have a property that they regularly work with. So I asked if there was a reason that they were shopping for a new property for their event, as they must have a hotel that they work with frequently. It turns out that they used to work very closely with another hotel, but during the event the previous year, their top executives had flown in and stayed in the guest rooms during the event. In the guest rooms, there was no complimentary mineral water that was available to these guests. So essentially, that hotel lost the business because of a lack of complimentary mineral water in the guest rooms. They felt that the other hotel had failed to deliver a luxury service that was expected for guests of this status. With this crucial information, we understood this client's expectations and were able to secure the business. You must be able to clearly explain the value of your products and services. When explaining your value proposition, be clear and concise. Customers are willing to pay more if they feel they are receiving value for their money. The actual value is less important than the perceived value of the customer. So what is the perceived value? That's what you need to explain is your value proposition and find out the perceived value from your client. There are some different angles on the perceived value. I'll give you a couple of different ideas. One, real estate agents. For real estate agents and events, they like to hold their functions at centrally located areas, which would be near major transportation hubs or surrounded by heavy foot traffic, as their prospective clients need to find the location easily in order to reach and to visit their launches. Company functions like to hold events near their office but away from the competition. For example, a very well-known bank will never have an event at a hotel next to or in the same building as one of their competitors. Sometimes they won't even select a hotel if they know that that hotel frequently does business with their competitors. A prominent name of a hotel could command better business to prospective clients, such as big companies who like to be associated with famous hotel brands that will give them the status for the event. A hotel's social responsibility efforts might also help to drive business with the government sector. They usually select mid-range properties as they don't want to be perceived as being wasteful by the general public. And perhaps for weddings, they would like to be held in hotels with heritage or beautiful places for photo shoots. Some hotels forbid photo shoots for external guests, but for their contracted wedding guests, they get to enjoy a photo shoot privilege around the property. So know your customers and how you can change and explain your value proposition to them. Because if you're selling to a government agent, you probably won't be selling them based on the value proposition of a photo shoot. And if you're selling to a wedding couple, you're probably not going to talk about the fact that it's away from competitors. During the sales process, it's important that you show empathy and that you are also persuasive with your client. So show empathy and understanding. Understand that you understand. Show that you understand that the client only has 10,000 euros to spend, but then explain to them how that can get them started for their event. And maybe you suggest a plan which takes into account what they've said, and then give them an option 2 and an option 3, where they might up spending more if their budget will allow and stretch to this extra option. But be empathetic during the sales process, as this accelerates a trusting relationship. It also helps to provide a greater probability of a win-win solution. You want to always look for a win for your client and a win for your hotel. In the sales process, you must also set clear expectations with your client. Be very clear about what their expectations of you and your property are, and what their deadlines are. You may need to be inquisitive and ask direct questions to find out what their expectations and what their deadlines are. It's also important to clearly outline what your expectations of the client are. What are the next steps in the process? There should also be no surprises. If you agreed to a certain timing or a certain setup with your client, then you must deliver that timing or that setup. If you change it and surprise the guest, then you will lose all credibility and trust. Work with the client and make sure that you set both sides, them and you, up for success, and that you also are able to manage their expectations. Tell them, I will get this agreement to you by next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Or let's set up a call for later this week. Be very clear. And if the client asks for something, don't say no. Instead, always offer appropriate alternatives. Find out what their priorities are and work with the client. If the guest wants to ride elephants into the ballroom, don't simply say no. First, try to find out what their priorities are. Is it to make a grand entrance, or is it to show off the elephants? If it's to make a grand entrance, what appropriate alternatives can you provide? Find out how you can help them achieve this without the actual elephant. Next, close the sale. Don't be afraid to ask for the sale. Ask the guest for the green light to prepare an agreement or to send them the plan. You can say to them, "Shall I put together an agreement for you to review?" What I propose the next step is that I put an agreement together for you. Don't be afraid to say this to your client and look for their buying signals. And as we said before, there should be no surprises. So be upfront and be honest about any challenges that you foresee. Finally, propose the next steps. Do you need another meeting or another telephone call? Or when will they receive the agreement from you? It's also important to show appreciation to your client, whether they book their event with you or they decide to go somewhere else. Regardless of the outcome, you must be gracious and show appreciation. Thank them for being considered for the event. Be enthusiastic about their event and all of the information that they've shared with you. Even if they've said no to booking their event with you. Make sure that you still remember this information. It might be useful for the future and staying connected with this client. If the client says yes and they are going ahead with the event at your property, graciously thank them and tell them how delighted you are to be working with them on this event. Perhaps the client will say, "Not now." In that case, you must still be gracious. Thank them for their time and let them know that you are here to support them as and when it might be appropriate to do so. This helps to set the tone for the future. And then stay in touch. Let them know that you'd prefer and would like to stay in touch and would love to be kept up to date on their progress. Whether they buy now or next week or call you in a year, every interaction must be genuine and done with appreciation. You should never upset anyone or be rude if they do not book their event with you. You never know when you might be able to sell to them in the future. The next step is to stay connected. When staying connected with clients, be creative. Don't do the same thing that all of your competitors are doing. That will just get lost and they may not even notice it. Yours must stand out. If all of your competitors send cards or fruit baskets, what can you do that will stand out? And even if that bride decided to get married at your competitor's hotel, send her a card or send her flowers on the wedding day. If budget is an issue, you can still stay in contact by emailing the bride. Perhaps you send her the property's anniversary package a year later, or information of baby shower packages if you happen to know that they will be welcoming a new family member. For secretaries, make them feel pampered and important. During Secretary's Day, send them an invitation to come to a cocktail networking event, or perhaps you could arrange a special cooking class for them to attend. Once they start feeling closer to you, that's when they may start to bring their business to you as well. And another important part of staying connected is to get back in touch when you said you would, or to keep in mind when you know they are planning their budgets for the following year. That could be a strategic time to get in touch with that client. Continue to engage your clients as well. Share with them content that will be of value to them and of interest. This will create positivity. And when you create this positive, creative content, then it's going to create positive thoughts and feelings about your brand, which may bring that client back to you to book their business. Let's review some of the important steps in events sales. Preparation is so important right from the start. Know your customers and be prepared. Be the expert. Build the relationship with this client. Really get to know them and remember the details. Develop trust and credibility. Remember that first impressions count and make sure there are no surprises. Ask for the sale and don't be afraid to propose the next steps to the client. Finally, stay connected and show appreciation, whether the client books their event with you or decides that now is not the right time. Let's put this all together. I'm going to share some scenarios with you and then give you some time to think about the best sales approach for each one of these different clients. Let's start our practice now. This couple is engaged. They have a particular date that they want to get married, and all of the other places that they have viewed so far have not lived up to their expectations. They have not liked anything that they have seen. Time is running out though, and they are stressed because they feel like they won't get the wedding they've been dreaming of on the date that they want. I'd like for you to think about your sales approach with these guests, this engaged couple. In particular, think about how you could be inquisitive with them. How could you incorporate storytelling into your sales pitch with these guests? And if they say they were going to discuss it tonight over dinner, how would you show appreciation? I'll give you some time to consider your approach and your answers to these questions. Let's talk about them together. So first of all, how would you be inquisitive with these guests? You could ask, what about the other venues that you have seen so far has not met your expectations? You could also ask questions about their dream wedding. What does that look like? The next question, how could you incorporate storytelling into your sales pitch with these guests? You could tell a story of all of the happy couples and the fairy tale weddings that have taken place at your property. If you have pictures that you can share of these incredible weddings, this will help you to sell even more. And finally, if the guest tells you that they're going to discuss it tonight over dinner, how will you show appreciation? Perhaps you could say, I cannot thank you enough for the time you spent with me today to allow me to better understand the wedding of your dreams so that my team and I are able to deliver it for you. Let's look at a different type of guest. This is a government representative. She is looking for a venue for a large buffet afternoon tea event. There will be approximately 200 to 300 people in attendance at this event. They have a maximum budget of 30 euros per person, and your price is 30 euros per person. You will be invited to bid for their business, including 2 other prospective properties, if you can meet their requirements. You're probably already thinking of a completely different strategy for this type of guest versus the engaged couple. While you think of your strategy, I'd like for you to think of the answers to these questions. What will be important for this client? What else might you want to know about this client? And if the client chooses another property, how will you stay connected? I'll give you a little bit of time to think about and write down some of your answers. Have you come up with a strategy for this very different client? What do you think will be important for this client? It will be important that you fit within their budget and that you can accommodate for the size of their group. What else would you want to know about this client? You'll want to know what the other 2 prospective properties are. Then, since you are the expert, you can explain your value proposition versus the other 2 so that the client will book with you even though your bid will be at the top end of their budget. If the client chooses another property, how will you stay connected? You could possibly invite the client for tea at your property in the future, or send a certificate for 2 to join you for afternoon tea. Let's look at a different client. This couple just got engaged and they are looking for their wedding venue. They're planning to be married in a year and a half and they are very excited. What is your strategy with these clients? How will you get to know them? How will you show that you understand what their needs are? And how will you ask for the sale? I'll give you a moment to think about your answers. How will you get to know these two clients? Ask them about their engagement. How did it happen? Where? And listen carefully to their story and be genuinely excited for them. Don't be distracted while they tell you about the engagement, even if you've heard thousands of these types of stories before. For them, it's the only engagement story they have. How will you show you understand their needs? If they're viewing the venue 1.5 years before the wedding, what is their need? They have a need to have everything planned and to have no surprises. So you should be extremely organized in your approach to show that you are capable, which will build their trust. And how will you ask for the sale? You could say, I understand you are just starting your search, but I would hate to lose this space for you. I suggest that I put the date on a 15-day complimentary hold for you. That way, it gives you time to come up with any questions you may still have so that I can answer them and we can ensure the perfect fit for your special day. Let's talk about a completely different client. This client is looking at your property for a startup launch. He's a young CEO and wants to plan his launch event. He wants his guests to be able to network, but will also have a presentation during the event. It's important to him that the technology is flawless. What will your approach be with this client? How will you show that you are the expert? How would you enlist the help of the team in order to sell your property? And how will you set clear expectations with this client? I'll give you some time to think about and write down some notes regarding your answers. First of all, how will you show that you are the expert? You must speak knowledgeably about the technology and tell the client about other technology-driven events that have been held at your property. Perhaps you could even show them some of the technology. Also, show your knowledge of startups, and in particular, startups in his field. Take notes on an iPad instead of writing them down. How would you enlist the help of the team to help sell? Invite your IT manager to lunch with you and the client. Be sure to prepare your IT manager with appropriate talking points or examples of higher tech events that they have pulled off in the past. How would you set clear expectations with this client? Be honest about what technology is within your capability, but ask the client to allow for a few days to see if any of your partners can assist you in achieving the goal. Tell the client from the beginning, though, if that it is not you or your hotel that can do it. These clients are soon to be parents and are looking for a venue for their baby shower. The wife is very excited and wants everything from the food to the decorations to be quite fancy, as it's their first child. The husband is visibly quieter and seems more concerned with the prices, quite understandably, since they need to watch costs for their soon to be newborn child. So, how will you adapt your strategy? How will you adapt to these two guests who are behaving differently? And how will you stay connected? I'll give you a little bit of time to consider. How will you adapt to these two guests? Be excited and be enthusiastic for the mother to be, while clearly stating your value proposition so that the husband sees the real value behind your prices. And how will you stay connected? You could send a congratulatory card, or perhaps a small baby gift, or even a framed picture from the shower to the guest afterwards. This guest is a secretary. She is urgently looking for a meeting venue for their company's executive team. Their usual meeting space is fully booked, and they must find another venue quickly. She is worried and stressed because she doesn't think that you will meet or be able to meet their expectations, as their executive team is very particular. What will you do to build trust and credibility with this client? And how will you ask her for the sale? I'll give you a little bit of time to consider your answers. What will you do to build trust and credibility? Make her feel important, like a VIP, and reassure her. Tell her a story about a flawless event for an extremely particular client and how well it went. How will you ask for the sale? Ms. Torrance, I assure you we will be able to meet the expectations of your executive team and, in fact, exceed their expectations. Shall I draw up an agreement and send it to you by the end of the day today so that you can review it? Let's look at a different example. These guests are looking for a big ticket event that will have a mix of dinner, a silent auction, and dancing. It is a formal fundraiser and they want a casino theme. The volunteer planners are very budget conscious. How will you entice the budget conscious planners to book your venue, which is more expensive than the competition? And how will you show appreciation if the guest decides to book their event somewhere else? I'll give you some time to think about these. How are you going to entice the budget conscious planners to book your venue, which is more expensive than the competition? Use the value proposition. We are unique to our competition in that all of our setup fees are included in the room rental. Additionally, all of your guests will enjoy complimentary breakfast in the morning. And how will you show appreciation if the guest decides to book the event elsewhere? Thank you so much for considering us for your annual fundraiser, Ms. Taylor. I hope you raise a record amount of money for your charity this year. Please do let me know how it goes. And we have one last scenario. These clients are looking for a family reunion and a 100th birthday celebration. The ages of their group range from a 1-month-old baby to the 100-year-old grandmother. Several elderly guests are in wheelchairs. The three in the picture are all coming for the site inspection. How will you prepare for the site inspection? And what types of questions can you ask to better understand their needs? I'll give you a little bit of time to consider your answers to those questions. How will you prepare for the site inspection? You must ensure that the operations teams are ready and aware and prepared for a guest in a wheelchair as well as for a child. Make sure that you have an accessible guest room to show and that is located near the other room so that you do not need to travel far to see both rooms. Make sure all hallways are clear. You could prepare a scavenger hunt for the child to complete during the site inspection. Make sure the restaurant has reserved a table that is easy to get to and will accommodate the guest in the wheelchair, but that they are also prepared with a child's menu. What types of questions can you ask to better understand their needs? You could ask, what does the guest of honor like to do? What brings her joy? What memories does she talk about the most? Is there a meal that she is known for cooking? By nature, is she more casual or formal? And is there anything that we should be cautious of avoiding? I hope you enjoyed this session and that you learned a lot, especially from those scenarios that we just covered. Thank you so much for your participation and for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.